Well, Taboo basically formed from a band called Boo. Taboo was myself, John Galani on keyboards and Simon Dias on guitar. Well, it's hard to say as far as influences because we're all listeners of a great varied style of music. One week, say for instance myself, I'll be listening to folk music, the next week it'll be rock and roll and then jazz, and I think the other guys are pretty much like that too. Influences come from everywhere, not only music but also our environment and the people that are around us. Like, environmentally, we're more aware of what's happening in our society because we live next to such a huge polluting giant like the steelworks, and it does affect a bit of our music like that. But in a sense, with Taboo, we were trying to hit a commercial market. We were trying to write songs that made people feel happy and have hope, rather than concentrate on the things that were bad, like, you know, pollution, like we're all being killed off by all these horrible chemicals pumped into the ocean and into the air.
What you have with kindred spirits, I wouldn't stop for nothing. That look again, that look in your eyes, I'll understand. I'm right here at your demand, along the touch of your gentle hand.
The name actually comes from a band that I guess one of the sort of inspirational bands, not necessarily the most inspirational, but from a whole series of bands. And there was a band back in the mid to late 60s in America called The Herd, I guess, and so we just bastardized that, I guess, you know. Yeah. I guess the band's major musical influences come from the 60s garage music, specifically American, in mid to late 60s. It was pretty popular in the college circuit around then.
I believe that there's such a wide range of eclectic alternative bands because we have this pub rock scene, which is by far the majority of local music, and we have a number of satellite type bands springing up around them, all searching for something different, but with very little in common. I think it's because those that do wish to provide an alternative usually look to somewhere completely different. And I don't think there is a venue, or any venues in Wollongong, where alternative or independent bands can get together, and I don't think there's much cross-fertilisation because of that.
Well, I think that there isn't so much of a common thread between particular styles of music with bands in Wollongong, but the fact that apart from again the sort of the top 40 of the covers sort of bands, there's a range of different bands, but they're all common in that they're all alternative, I guess. So while particular styles might be different, I think the fact that they're all attempting to be alternative and distance themselves from the mainstream is, I think that's the sort of common thread. And I think down here too, the sort of subculture, if you like, which appeals to anything but the sort of mainstream, will sort of support a range of styles, simply because, again, it is a bit different, and because there is only a small amount of people who can support that.
Wollongong is a fairly multicultural place, as well as being, you know, like a lot of different social groups. You've got your university group, you've got your disco goers, you've got your pub goers, you've got your bikies, and so on and so on. There's a lot of different groups in Wollongong, and they all have their own musical taste, and it's pretty much like that all over the world. It's just that Wollongong is a bit of a multicultural boiling pot, you know, so there's a lot of multicultural groups in Wollongong. There's a lot of different social groups in Wollongong, but I'd attribute it mainly to the fact that there's nothing there to combine these people. There's no one there to guide them. There's no one there to get them together and to push people in a certain direction.
You know, traditionally, if you look at the music itself, it was sort of more or less the first form of R&B that came out of the Negro movement of music. And in the 50s and early 60s, you know, it started to become electrified and more popular, you know. But I guess by the time the mid-60s came around, it was being experimented again further with, you know, much more energy, because simply with, I guess, technology, you know. I mean, people with guitars and amps and things like that, and so they were giving it a real raw edge, and it was a real sort of, I guess, amateurish in a sense, you know, because it was really raw and rough, you know, it wasn't very produced. So I guess, I found that attractive, you know, as opposed to more standard forms.
Our weirdest gig would had to have been the Parents Without Partners gig we did at the local Ukrainian social club. That was wild.
I think the weirdest thing would have been falling off the stage with my girlfriend, actually.
I think the weirdest thing that ever happened at one of our gigs was when a guy jumped up on a table in front of us while we were playing a song and pulled his pants down and stuffed a newspaper up his bum and lit it and ran around the dance floor.
We'd just sort of finished playing. There was a stage and then there was a table, and we stepped onto the table and the table gave away, and in front of all these blokes' 21st, all these relatives and that. And like, as soon as we started playing, it was Yugoslav 21st, and all the old people ran out going, oh, geez. Like, they were really blown out about it.
One of the weirdest gigs would have to be Corrimal Leagues Club. We were playing it downstairs, not the main auditorium, very much in a bar area with a large dance floor and a small audience. And our sort of music really wasn't going down well with the people that were there, which were middle-aged. Basically, they wanted to see probably the highlights of last week's bowls on television rather than watching Svedgie's Veggies doing the Love Boat theme and a couple of Ramones tunes. But it was a pretty strange atmosphere, and I think we won them in the end, which was the best part about it. We actually got a warm reception in the end.
Oh, the weirdest thing that ever happened. See, where do I start? The weirdest thing that ever happened.
One of the weirdest things that happened to the Noddies was when we saw a UFO. It happened twice. Once on the way to band practice, we saw this thing hovering above Mascot, because we practice in Cogra.
About a year or so ago, we went down to Melbourne on a Dion's bus, which is like local bus company, you know, and the bus was really old, and we took all the seats out and we went down with another band, another local band, and that was pretty funny. It was just driving around Melbourne, and we'd painted the bus, you know, with all dates of when we were playing and things like that, and we were just driving around. So that was pretty good.
Just a light, and we thought it could have been a helicopter, and then it just went out over the western suburbs at a fairly quick rate, and then we didn't see it. We said, oh, you know, we've got us a bogey and all this sort of business. But one time when we did see something a bit closer up was when, just after we'd recorded the record. We were on our way back from Sydney with the 2-inch master tape in the back, and we were coming around the cliffs at Coldcliff, and there was a light hovering around and coming closer, and we were sort of checking it out, and the guy in the back was going wild, going, come on, let's get out of here, let's go. And we were a bit worried that it might have wiped the tapes, you know, but it didn't, so.
Once this girl kept yelling at me to take my clothes off, and then she threw a glass at my head, because I didn't. No, told her I wasn't that kind of guy.
Now the foreman at the steelworks, with all of his lurks, he's not safe from the recession with its pitfalls and jerks. 25 years in the shade of a sofa cloud, just to be pissed off and told to join the dull Q crowd. Don't let them tell you that the Leisure Coast is the place to be. You're getting caught between the mountains and the stinking Black Sea, with 100 smokestacks melting out this view. They'll put you in the circle of the endless dog queue. So what of the future for the unemployed? What hope? And the pigs still wonder why we're living on the dope. Why don't the Russians do us all a turn and drop a bomb on the steelworks? We'll stand and watch it burn. And then we'll build a Disneyland and watch the money roll in. We'll get the sea back to the fish and let the fresh air in. But in the modern day where things are still tough, you can ask the dog bludgers and they say they've had enough. I've had enough. Don't let them tell you that the Leisure Coast is the place to be. You get caught between the mountains and the stinking Black Sea, with 100 smokestacks belching out this view. They'll push you in the circle of the endless dog queue. Don't let them tell you that the Leisure Coast is the place to be. You get caught between the mountains and the stinking Black Sea, with 100 smokestacks belching out this view. They'll push you in the circle of the endless dog queue. Thank you.